Je déclare ouverte.
I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 20 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food, pursuant to Standing Order 81-4 and the order of reference of Tuesday, March 1, 2021. The committee is undertaking its study of the main estimates, 2022-23. I will start with a few reminders. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So you are aware the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. And of course, screenshots or taking shots of your screen is not permitted.
The spirit of just following the rules and regulations of the Board of Internal Economy as it relates to COVID-19 protocol. Let me just start by saying it's great to see a committee room full again. It is starting to feel a little bit like normal. Of course, we have our guests here today, and as was mentioned, we're going to be studying the main estimates. Of course, we have our Honourable Minister, Marie-Claude Bibeau. Welcome, and thank you for your leadership and all your advocacy. From the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, we have Sylvie Lapointe, Vice President of Policy and Programs Branch. We also have Philip Morel, Vice President of Operations, and from the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food, we have Paul Sampson, who is the Associate Deputy Minister. Welcome, Mr. Sampson. And we also have Marie-Claude Gerard, Assistant Deputy Minister, Corporate Management Branch. Welcome to you both here in the room, and welcome to our guests online, Ms. Lapointe and Mr. Morel. So we're going to start with the first from a statement from our minister, up to 7.5 minutes, and then we'll take it over for questions. And of course, the second hour is with officials. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to be back, and as you said, with a full room. We are here to review the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada's main estimates for 2022-2023, which total over $3.2 billion. These estimates reflect our government's significant commitment to the success of our farmers and food processors. Over half of these estimates, more than $1.8 billion, will support key programs under the Canadian Agricultural Partnership with provinces and territories, which drive sustainable growth, innovation, and competitiveness of the sector. That includes our business risk management programs, with over $56 million to help farmers better manage risk through the elimination of the reference margin limit from agri-stability. For this fiscal year alone, we are also committing over $589 million to support our dairy, poultry, and egg producers and processors as they adjust to the impact of European Union and Trans-Pacific trade agreements. $137 million to support and reward farmers for the adoption of environmental practices, including agricultural climate solution and the renewed Agricultural Clean Technologies Program. The estimates also include support to help potato growers in PEI manage surplus potatoes due to the border closure. Mr. Chair, thanks to the collaborative efforts of the industry and government, on April 1st, the U.S. border was reopened to PEI table stock potatoes. In the federal budget, we have committed a new investment of $28 million through ACOA and CFIA to ensure the long-term sustainability of potato industry on the island. While these estimates reflect the current financial picture, I want to stress that we can still commit to new spending this year as the need arises through supplementary estimates.
Since our last meeting, the situation in Ukraine has worsened. I met with the Ukrainian Minister of Agriculture at the G7 meeting in Germany and reiterated Canada's full support for Ukraine's efforts to continue production and exports. As Ukraine is one of the world's largest grain producers, the world is looking to other producers, like Canada, to step up to the plate. Our agricultural producers are up to the challenge, but at the same time they face higher input costs. We are working with our partners and industry leaders to ensure that our agricultural producers continue to have access to fertilizer. To help producers deal with cash flow issues this spring, we have modified the advanced payments program so that they can get their full cash advance up front. That's the first $100,000. So in addition, we have extended the deadline of agri-stability to help more producers manage the risks they face. Since we last met, we have continued to invest new funds to help Canada's agricultural producers reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and increase their resilience to climate change. In Budget 2022, we committed over $1 billion in new funding to help our producers to reduce their carbon emissions and to continue to source our food in a changing climate. We are tripling our investments in the Clean Agriculture Technology Program and expanding our on-farm climate action fund. We are investing $100 million in research and science to support the development of sustainable crops and technologies. $150 million is being added to work with the provinces and territories to implement the Agricultural Landscape Resilience Program. Access to labor continues to be a significant challenge for the sector. Budget 2022 reaffirms our commitment to ensure that temporary foreign workers arrive in a timely manner and that their entry and stay is safe. We are investing over $150 million to reduce red tape for trusted employers, enable employers to hire workers quickly to meet short-term labor needs, and better protect workers. We also announced significant enhancements to the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, which will allow food processing employers to hire up to 30% of their workforce through the TFW program. While we are working to overcome current challenges, such as avian influenza, we are also keeping an eye on those that lie ahead. Along with my provincial and territorial counterparts, we continue to work with industry to develop the next agricultural policy framework, which will run from 2023 to 2028. We had an excellent meeting earlier this month in preparation for our annual meeting in Saskatchewan in July. I'm confident that by working together, we can achieve our shared vision of ensuring that Canada is recognized as a world leader in sustainable food production. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I am ready for the discussion. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. It's exactly 5 minutes on the button, so I'll just take a moment to recognize the Ukrainian interns that we have here in the room with us with the Ukrainian-Canadian program. I think there are some 41 interns here on the Hill with us, so thank you very much for your work, which is extraordinary, and for your presence here today. And now we will have the question period. Mr. Leroux for 6 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Minister. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon, along with the officials with you. Right off the bat, Minister, you talked about negotiations for the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement negotiations. 4 months are left with the summer period ahead of us, so the industry is telling us that nothing's been done yet, and I don't know. Well, in the budget 2022, it's clearly indicated that we're going to give all of the information for compensation to both poultry and egg producers in the fall economic statement. Well, that's going to be a little bit more later than the first year. Well, thank you. The current situation, we know that the United States have challenged certain measures of the agreement of CUSMA. And on your side, you claimed victory, so it's a bit worrisome when we hear that kind of talk. Last week, we heard that we might have a challenge from another front. So how are you positioning yourself in light of these challenges? Well, I assure you that we take this very seriously and that we're always as firm in our position to defend our supply-managed sectors. I had two recent conversations with Secretary Ilsak and another in Germany when we met under the G7 banner. And so the Minister Ng has also published our answer, our response to the panel's demands that was answering the questions that the Americans filed. So we're still confident that the changes that we made are in line with the free trade agreement and the panel's demands as well. Well, perhaps in the same vein, there was a question earlier on this issue, I think last week, and it was much in the news, and it was the issue of milk for young babies. And I know that in the last agreement there was some concession that was made, or some concessions, and now we have a problem where we're having a shortage of milk for our young Canadian families in terms of baby milk. So you said earlier that you're following that closely, but what tangibly is being done to get young families what they need? Well, we talked a lot about this shortage in the United States, but in Canada the situation's not the same for different reasons. We have several supply sources from different countries, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and Health Canada are very attentive to the situation, and also they've given more flexibility to allow us to import, if necessary, from other countries in order to meet this need. And so the needs in Canada are much less significant than in the U.S. Well, yes, but in some areas around Montreal there was concern about that. So, well, it's somewhat like that. When we see something happening elsewhere, it might worry us quickly, but there might be purchases that have been impulsive ones that might increase the shortage. But I think that in Canada we're in a good position with several sources, and they come from countries that we can be confident in. Thank you, Minister. And on another issue, you talked about the labor shortage and about the percentage of temporary foreign workers, particularly in the processing sector. There's also a problem on the production level, and it's quite flagrant. Yesterday, a single plant, Onimel, had to reduce their production by $37,000 a week to $25,000 because they have a labor shortage. So we know that there were agreements between you as a department and the Department of Labor as well as with immigration. But is there a clear plan for this? Because since these announcements were made in January, I haven't seen any new people arriving to be working in these plants. Well, Minister Qualtrough indeed announced several measures that are particularly targeting the processing plants, food processing plants, and increasing from 10 to 35% for temporary foreign workers for these plants, and we increased the length of stay. Well, but so far nobody's arrived yet, Madam Minister. The problem's there. So we hear you. We know that you have made some changes, but it hasn't brought in more workers. So where's the problem here? Where's the block? Well, at the federal level, we made significant changes to the rules of the game, and we also invested to put more resources to be able to deal with these files more quickly. So that's already happening in terms of the processors. But for producers, we know that they are going to need more help, and we need to have trusted workers that will be able to come in and give them a lot more flexibility, and that they can plan a lot better. So it's changed a lot. We're moving forward. Well, I'm anxious to see the results on the ground, Madam Minister. Also, on the issue of the 35% surtax, we know that producers are starting to get the bills where it's clearly identified the cost that this imposes per metric ton. So you responded to my question yesterday, and the Prime Minister answered me and said that there were programs. But I think it's a secret. These are loans you're giving. So we're just increasing the debt on our producers. So, Mr. Leroux, I'm sorry, but your time is up. I imagine that the other people will be able to, others will be able to raise those issues. So thank you. Mr. Turnbull for 5 minutes.
Thanks to the Minister and her officials for being here today. It's always great to see you, and thanks for making the time in your busy schedule to answer the committee's questions. I want to start with the question. It's clear to me that Canadians are increasingly concerned about climate change. And it's alarming, I think, what we've seen, which is an increase in extreme weather due to climate change, which has really devastated many of our farms and farm families in recent years. Whether it's floods in BC or droughts in the prairies, there is no doubt that these events will continue and are likely to increase in number and severity. Earlier this year, the Government of Canada announced its plan to reach its 2030 GHG emissions reduction targets, and significant money was dedicated for that in Budget 2022. Can the Minister explain how the agriculture sector will benefit from this new plan and how it will meaningfully participate in the fight against climate change?
Thank you. You're so right. I mean, our farmers are at the forefront, and they are the first one to be impacted by climate change. So they are really committed to do even better, because we recognize that it has always been a priority for them to protect the environment. And actually, I was glad to see in the last survey, les Statistiques Canada,
Of Statistics Canada.
of our farmers have already started to adopt more sustainable practices. So we've got more budget to expand our on-farm climate action plan, which is the one that provide direct financial incentives to our farmers who will adopt good practices such as cover cropping, rotational grazing, or better management of the fertilizer. We have also tripled the clean technology program, which was extremely well received for the first round. We can see that producers are eager to afford and to buy these new technologies, and we are also investing in research and innovation to accelerate the development and commercialization of these technologies. You've seen probably another program that will be coming, and hopefully in collaboration with the provinces, to the partnership agreement, which is the landscape program, sustainable landscape, a new program to increase the sequestration of carbon. So we are really committed to supporting our farmers in adopting better practices and having access to new technology that is energy efficient.
Well, thank you, Minister. I'm going to give the rest of my time chair to Ms. Valdez. Thanks.
Thank you. And Minister, appreciate you being here, as well as the officials, to answer all of our questions. So as you mentioned in your opening remarks, Ukraine is a major producer of grains, which feed many other countries. Food shortages which will follow after Ukraine's unjustified invasion is a problem. And so you met with the G7 agriculture ministers to discuss those challenges. So I wondered if you could share with us those challenges, and if you discuss any ways that you can address them.
Thank you. So yes, last week we were in Germany, in Stuttgart, for the G7, and actually the agriculture minister of Ukraine was with us for a full day. So it was an opportunity for us to understand better the situation. They are still hopeful, confident to be able to produce in one part of the country, but obviously there are huge challenge. The port of Odessa is not accessible at that time, so they are looking for alternative routes to be able to export. And with the other G7 countries and here in Canada, we are looking at how we can support them in terms of getting the grain from last season actually out and being sold to countries who need it desperately. So it's a very important issue. He also talked about the fact that agricultural infrastructure have been targeted, destroyed, and grain is being stolen and sold. So the challenges are huge, but Canada, as another country with a lot of experience in the area of grain production and exports, and sharing some of the biggest companies are established in Canada and in Ukraine. So we already know the network, and we are trying on different strategies to support them.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Still about a minute left, Ms. Valdez.
Oh, yes. So I just wanted to see if there was anything from your opening remarks, or if this is an opportunity for you to, speak or answer any other questions that you might have not had an opportunity to answer earlier.
There's so many things that comes to my mind now, but yes, for Ukraine is a big producer of food, and countries are looking at us to step up and try to produce more next year. This year actually, because unfortunately with the drought we had last year, we don't have much surpluses, but we're really trying to step up for this season. And from the information we are getting from the industry, we expect to be able, if the weather is on our side, obviously, to be able to produce about 7% more of wheat. So this would be this is a demonstration that our Canadian farmers are stepping up to support food security in the world.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Minister and Ms. Valdez. And now Mr. Perron for 6 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Minister. Thank you to the officials for being with us today. I will continue on this in the same vein with Ukraine. We spoke several times about the 35% tariff, and everyone agrees with the sanctions against Ukraine, but there are surcharges that date back to the fall, and so I wonder where you are at so that these people could be exempt or compensated somehow. Well, as you know, when we want to support an allied country that is suffering from a war that is totally unjustified now, the best way for us to do it is to set out severe sanctions on products coming out of Russia, which is what we did. But we left the fertilizers come to the country because we knew how badly our producers needed those, so that we have a good production this year, indeed, so that we can meet this more significant demand we'll see this year. We're also working on other strategies in the supply chain and in terms of research and innovation, so that we're not in that same situation in the future. We want to be much less dependent on Russia. That's not a situation we want to see again. So the tariff does apply. It's on imports, all imports of fertilizer coming into the country. And what we want to do is to recognize, indeed, that our producers this year are facing a significant increase in the price of inputs, including that tariff. So we've made some changes to the anticipated payments program. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Minister, but my time goes quickly. On the orders that were placed before these sanctions were put in place, you didn't really answer me. Where are we at? The tariff supply. So we're not working on it anymore? We're working on other options to support our producers, but not in that form. Okay, I understand. Thank you. On wheat exports, everyone's talking about it. That's good. But I had communication with other producers who are worried that there is a serious increase in exports of grain, of wheat. That's fine with the price, but they're worried about having a shortage in the country. So these are producers, serious producers, who ask me. Well, clearly, in terms of Canada, we're not going to start intervening and controlling trade within the country. And furthermore, at the G7 last week, we said that if we wanted to contribute to food security in the world, we have to lead by example and, above all, not start by closing our borders, and that could snowball and have an even bigger effect on food security. That's what I understood. No, I mean, I'm talking about grain producers who are worried about having a shortage in terms of feeding their animals. So, I mean, I'm just seeking to be reassured that you've thought of that. Well, I think that the industry is a private and independent sector. It communicates very well, and we saw how resilient our supply chain was. People are sensitive to that reality, and we know that there'll be a higher demand for it. So we know that the producers are mobilizing to produce more wheat this year than usual. So I'm confident that altogether working with the industry, and the fact that we're sharing the maximum of information, we're being transparent, that really allows everyone to take enlightened decisions. Okay, thank you very much. For the 35% and the orders placed before the war, we'll see what happens. But for agri-stability, you talked about that with Mr. Leroux earlier. You're confident with the agreement in Saskatchewan. That sounds like we're on the verge of an agreement. And with the percentage that you proposed, is that what we hope? Yes, that's what I hope as well. We want to increase the compensation rate. Okay, that's the answer. Thank you. In terms of the environment, you spoke. We're increasing our programs. And I'm talking a lot with people in the sector, and we're studying this currently at the committee. People are worried that there's something that will be decentralized, that won't have necessarily fixed programs that they will fill in forms for. But we need to be able to look at every impact and every positive move made by the producer. So it should be as decentralized as possible. And secondly, do we take into account what's already been done by producers, people who are been innovative for several years in the development of new programs? There are several questions in that one. You're talking about the centralization of programs. So the Iron Farm Action Program, we have distributed the funds through some dozen partners who made proposals that were indeed adapted geographically to their realities or to the sector that those funds would serve. So in Quebec, there's a big part that was allocated to the UPA. So it's a way to be more flexible and to be less centralized and be more sensitive to regional realities of all of these people. So the beginning of Mr. Perron's question was inaudible to the interpreter. We want to reduce our emissions, and we want to help people get to a higher level. So we're not in a mode where we're looking to the past. We're really looking at more to how we can go further to reduce our emissions and to do more carbon sequestration. And the programs are defined in that way. There's a program that we're being developed by Environment and Climate Change Canada that's more on the level of carbon credits. So there, again, it's still under study. I can't give you more details, but there might be an opportunity. I'm sorry, Madam Minister, the time is up. I added a little bit on for your answer, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perron. Now, Mr. McGregor for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Minister, back to our committee. Good to see you back again. I want to start my first question just with regards to the news from April when the changes to the temporary foreign worker program were made. You presented an increase in the maximum duration of the positions, the ability to hire up to 30% of the workforce in 7 employment sectors, et cetera. And I know that in your mandate letter from December of last year, you were given instructions by the Prime Minister to work with several of your cabinet colleagues, notably Minister of Employment and Workforce Development and also the Minister of Immigration. We have heard reports. I know most farms have a very solid relationship with their workers, but there have been reports from the National Farmers Union, from the Migrant Workers Alliance for Change about the rights of those workers. They play such a critical role in our agricultural economy, but there have been instances where there has been documented abuse. Now, part of your mandate letter it asks you to specifically strengthen the inspection regime to ensure the health and safety of temporary foreign workers. We want to ensure that everyone who comes here to work is treated with dignity and is paid appropriately for the work that they do. They have the proper work and safety conditions. Can you update this committee on how you're making out with that specific instruction in your mandate letter?
So I'm working on this, obviously, with Minister Qualtrough. And we've seen also in the budget that we have additional resources to put in place the Trusted Employer Program. And we are working, on the criteria and what this trusted employer program will look like. But the idea behind that is really to incentivize all the employers to be even better employers and to reward those who really, stand correctly. I think this will be an additional incentive for the employers to realize, how important it is, and it is to their benefit to give even additional and greater conditions to their employees. I have absolutely no pity or no sympathy for the bad ones. And with Minister Qualtrough, we are looking, because it's more under her authority, the inspections, let's say. So this is the thing we're trying to put in place, actually to clarify also our expectations, what it means to be a good employer. I think it's important to clarify.
All right, thank you for that. Just regarding our country's recent experience with, going through 2 years of the pandemic, it is actually pretty amazing how well many of our sectors stood up to that extreme challenge. That being said, though, when the Auditor General examined your department's response, it was noted that, or recommended that the department complete a national emergency preparedness and response plan for a crisis affecting Canada's entire food system. Can you provide the committee with an update on what progress has been made on that?
I would say that at this point, we are more at the stage of evaluating what has been done and where we can bring additional, where we can improve.
Anything specific, like on the processing sector? Because our committee's made recommendations to that effect. So, the challenges, but also the solutions are quite well documented. Any progress on that?
No, I'm not ready yet to. It's a work in progress, and no, I'm not ready to respond. But I'll be happy to get back to you.
Okay, I'll move on then. I know that one of the items that you want to move ahead with too is a fertilizer reduction strategy. And I know that right now you're doing consultations, so nothing is firm at the moment. We have certainly heard expressions of concern from farmers that they are concerned that by reducing the amount of fertilizer that they can use, it could potentially impact their yields. I would argue, though, that there are also other ways of farming which can actually be employed quite successfully with a reduction of fertilizer use. It helps the farmer's bottom line, but they also enjoy very healthy yields. I know you're in consultation, but I also know that the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food is staffed by incredibly brilliant scientists. Have they presented to you any options on how to make this plan a feasible one?
Yes, we're working closely with the Department of Environment and the team at Agriculture Canada, obviously, with great scientists, as you said. I just want to clarify one thing. It's not reduction of fertilizer, it's reduction of the emissions caused by, or just be sure that everybody understands the same thing. So I think, yes, we are trying to do more, and actually being ambitious. We have an ambitious target, but I think this is what we need to push all of us, the industry, the scientists, the businesses, the farmers, to really step forward and try to find new ways. I believe that with all the investment we are making in research and innovation, we will find new type of fertilizer or new practices that will help us achieve this goal. And recently I had a conversation around our supercluster, our protein supercluster, and there's something coming out of that would bring us, a new type of fertilizer that would generate less emissions. So this is just one example that I'm very hopeful. And I think that by pushing ourselves into innovation, practices and technologies, and inputs themselves, we'll find a path forward.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. McGregor. We'll now turn to Mr. Barlow for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Minister, for coming. I just want to make sure I'm clear on some of your answers. So you will not be exempting the 35% tariff on any fertilizer purchased before March 2nd. Is that correct?
At this moment, we're not contemplating this position. We're more looking at different options to support farmers.
Yeah. So you're not going to be offering, from what I'm getting from your answer, your your solution to this then is expanding advance payment program, so allowing producers just to take on more debt. There's not going to be any specific compensation for that fertilizer tariff.
We're working with the industry to really understand where the needs, what sector, where, and what mechanism would be the most appropriate to support that.
Okay. Is there any other G7 country enforcing a tariff on fertilizer?
I don't think so.
No. So knowing from the COP26 announcement on fertilizer reduction that you have changed to fertilizer emissions reductions, is this their 35% tariff on fertilizer just another way to push fertilizer use reduction on Canadian producers?
Now, there are two different things here. On one side, we are supporting Ukraine with severe sanctions on Russia. And we're being strong on that.
Right,
on
that no other G7 country is
Mr.
doing.
Barlow, I just like, you asked a question.
Yep.
I know you have to
but-
manage your
but
time.
she's-
I'll watch the clock, but let the minister please have her opportunity to
Okay,
respond.
Mr. Chair.
So on one side, supporting Ukraine, on the other side, being ambitious on reducing emissions because we know it's essential for the future of our agriculture.
Thank you. So in helping Ukraine, if that is the issue, anything that was purchased before March 2nd does nothing to help Ukraine. But we are in the midst of a food crisis. You've talked about it today that we need to increase yields. So does it really make sense to decrease yields and decrease fertilizer use when we have to fill the void of losing 20% of the world's wheat, barley, and sunflower oil production? Does that make sense to you?
We're not reducing yields. We are supporting our farmers in different ways. And actually, from the information I got, we expect to have if the weather is with us, obviously, we expect to have 7% more wheat this year.
I'm going to share my time with Mr. Abt. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Minister. Pest Management Center of AFC provides critical data to the pest rate, PMRA, I'll say the short way, on behalf of farmers, and particularly farmers of minor crops. Yet their budget has been flat for a decade. Inflation has chewed away at their effectiveness. Numerous positions are vacant. Can you explain to the community how many do you intend to increase the number of reports of the number of projects that they can support? Because they've really been decreased over the last several years because of those concerns.
Well, PMRA is an important component of our ag, connected with the agriculture department, and I don't have anything specific in mind, but I don't know if.
Sorry, Minister. PMC is the Pest Management Center under AFC, not PMRA.
No,
not
okay,
PMRA.
okay.
And so they're calling the industry's calling for another.
Translation.
Yeah, the industry's calling for another $5 million just to get us back to the capacity that they had earlier, and so that's a major concern of the industry.
Okay, now, sorry, I was lost in our acronyms. So I haven't got additional budget in this budget, but this is something that we pay attention to.
On August the 4th, the PMRA did announce a transformation process, and that provided or is considering another layer of oversight. Dr. Gilles Sandon, ADM for Science and Technology, did testify at this committee, and I asked him the question for a definition of citizen science, which has been touted as being an element of that oversight panel. He basically explained that where citizens can report disease outbreaks or insect outbreaks. What I'm hearing back from industry is that is not their concern. Their concern is that it's going to lead to a non-scientific avenue into our whole regulatory process. That is not good for Canada's reputation internationally. Can you comment? How are you representing AG's concerns on this issue to Health Canada?
I want to assure you that we want this, let's say, modernization being strongly anchored in science, definitely. We know that farmers need inputs and fertilizer for good production and yields. Minister Duclos is the lead on this, but I'm following it very, very closely. We have just completed a consultation. There's a report that will follow, and I know that the agency is working on building the expert panel that will also support.
Thank you.
Mr. Appman, no, I'm sorry. We're at time, and actually I gave a little bit to be generous to you and to the minister to get the answers out. So we're going to go to Ms. Taylor-Roy now for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Minister, for joining us again and answering our questions about the main estimates. I had a couple of questions to do with what's happening globally as well, but more with the avian influenza and canola. So, and I will be sharing my time, I might add, with my colleague, Mr. Lewis. So first on avian influenza, it's being reported in many countries, in Asia, Europe, and closer to us in the United States, of course, and in 7 of our provinces. I'm just wondering if you could explain what happens when the flock of a farm is infected and whether the producers in this case are losing everything.
Thank you. So when a producer is, see a sick animal that might be avian influenza, you would call CFIA, and the inspector would come in a very rapid way, make the analysis, confirm, and if it's an avian influenza case that is confirmed, then there's a protocol that will be put in place. The other animals will most likely be depopulated. And there's a whole process that is to make sure that it's being done in the right manner. There's a zone that will be established around the farm to protect the region and avoid, different measures will be put in place to avoid contamination. To your question, will they lose everything? Actually, through the law, with CFIA. There is a compensation program. So the farmer will be paid the market value of the animals that he has to, or she has to, depopulate. So there's already a program in place for that. And I just want to, mention that biosecurity is extremely important. And I recognize that our farmers, commercial farmers, are taking it extremely seriously because avian influenza is a serious disease. This year, it came mainly from migration birds, not from contamination from one farm to another. So it just demonstrates that they are taking the biosecurity measures seriously, and I would just encourage all of them, the small, medium, and large poultry farms, to do so.
Thank you very much. And I know it's hit close to home here with King Cole Duck Farms, so I appreciate that is in place. And I believe that is about half the time I have, so I do want to turn it over and give my colleague, Mr. Lewis, an opportunity to ask a question as well.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, the member from Aurora, Oak Ridge, Richmond Hill. And thank you, Minister, for being here. It's a really pleasure to have you here appearing before the committee. Every day food is wasted from farm to plate, production, processing, distribution, retail, food services, even at home. About half of Canada's food is wasted, and it's got economic, environmental, social implications for the ag sector and for Canadians in general. In my riding in Kitchener-Conestoga, we've got a company that I've met many times called Enviro Stewards. They take a holistic approach and work with other companies to focus on resource conservation, help them earn higher margins and lower footprints. And the benefits are multifold. They help with food loss, energy efficiency, and water efficiency as well. So can you tell us the latest initiatives taken by the government to tackle the issue of food waste?
Thank you. We have... you will remember that we have launched the Food Waste Challenges also. So this is a very exciting initiative that will bring us with new innovation solutions in terms of business model and in terms of technology as well. And in my mandate letter, we could see that there is a fund for food waste that will also follow these challenges. We have a few example of innovation that have been put in place and which we supported recently. In terms of packaging, we have recyclability and compostability of packaging materials. So this is a project that we have done with the Canadian Produce Marketing Association. Recently, in my region, we supported a business which use food waste to feed flies, to make protein out of this, and also peat moss. So this is another very concrete example of the type of project that we can support in terms of innovation to reduce food waste.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Maintenant, Monsieur Parent pour...
And now, Mr. Parent, for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you. I'll try to be quick. I'll just like to come back to the 35% tariff on fertilizers. Now, I understand that you're still working on this. Yes, we're looking for a way to support producers because they have higher input costs with the tariff. Today in the House, I raised the issue of bees. You saw what the UPA said yesterday. Have you started any discussions with them? I imagine that they've met with you before making such a statement. And you've had perhaps meetings with Minister Lamontagne in Quebec, but it's a pan-Canadian problem. Yes, absolutely. We're having discussions in all the provinces and with the industry, and we recognize that this year is particularly difficult in terms of mortality, and we've redoubled our efforts to find sources of safe countries that we could import bees from, not just queens, but yes. So significant imports, but that are safe. And also we need to facilitate the transport because with COVID we've had many fewer flights, so we're trying to facilitate this as best we can. We know that the sector in Quebec came out with some demands yesterday or some. We'll look at that to see exactly what the needs are and what the existing programs are, and especially how we can do or what we can do to be more resilient in the future and to ensure that the situation doesn't get worse from year to year. On the contrary, that it gets better. And if I could say, please, in Prince Edward Island, we're working specifically on that to be able to supply us all. So with the temporary workers, Mr. Leroux asked something about that earlier, and you were talking about changes made for the long term. But we'd like to have a date. Do you have an implementation date? Because I have an asparagus producer at home. It's $150,000 that he's lost. He asked for people to come in April, and he doesn't have them still. It's May, and now it's May. Well, I don't have a date, but I have money in the budget, which I say that I have, but it's the Minister of Employment that is the lead on it. So things are moving well forward nicely, and now we have the money in the budget to be able to money into these programs we've been working on for a long time. No, but in 37, I'm sorry, Mr. Perron, your time is up. That's the rule. That's the rule. So, Mr. McGregor, for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, according to your departmental plan, I think there was a figure saying that 86% of Canadian farms were deemed financially healthy. You had a goal of reaching having a 90% figure, so close. But what can you tell us about why you were not able to achieve your target? And concerns have been raised, particularly by the National Farmers Union, about the amount of farm debt and how it's increased over the years. Typically, which farms and in what sectors of Canada seem to be struggling at the moment? Does your department have a clear snapshot on those figures?
We have to recognize, I think, that the 2 last years have been farmers had to go through unexpected situation with COVID, obviously, but also with extreme weather event. So I think these are reasons that could explain the challenges that some of our farmers are facing. I think our government was and still is there to support. Last year we had the biggest budget for the Federal Agricultural Department of the history with $4 billion. So I think it shows our commitment to support our farmers in these time of crisis. Yeah.
And just quickly, in the 45 seconds I have, last month I was invited by the Canadian Produce Marketing Association to attend their big convention in Montreal. Very amazing to see the innovation that is going on with regards to packaging. And I know, some of your cabinet colleagues are taking the lead on that, but do you have any updates on, how you're working with the CPMA in particular and trying to drive that? Because it seems like there's some pretty amazing breakthroughs that were already on display on the trade floor.
Yes, I was impressed as well. And this is the project that I just mentioned, talking about food waste, but recently we've given $376,000 to the Canadian Produce Marketing Association. And this is one very concrete example of, investment we are making toward having packaging that is either compostable or recyclable.
Merci, Madame Ministre.
Thank you, Madam Minister. Thank you, Mr. McGregor. And now we're going to have a final round of questions. 5 minutes for the Conservatives, 5 minutes for the Liberals. Therefore, perhaps Mr. Barlow to begin.
I have just two quick questions, and I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Mr. Epp. Minister, more than a year ago, Health Canada said that gene editing and CRISPR technology was safe, but you wanted to do a reassessment. And when is that gene editing framework going to be announced? We've been waiting for more than a year.
I don't have a date for you yet. I know this is something we're working on, but unless there's some... I don't have a date.
Anyway, okay. So we now have many farmers who are saying that their income taxes are being withheld from being processed as a result of C8, the carbon tax rebate. So they aren't getting their income taxes done. But now the PBO has said that the carbon tax is not revenue neutral, doesn't reduce emissions, it contributes to inflation. So wouldn't exempting the carbon tax from farm fuels like propane and natural gas just be a much more efficient and easier way and more beneficial for farmers? Wouldn't that be the smarter way to go?
Well, I would start by saying it would be good if we could get C8 approved and we could proceed the tax income of our farmers, and so we can send them the check for that. And our position on the price and pollution, we believe, and it's based on experience, that it is one of the most significant way to reduce emissions, and we have historic budget, to support our farmers in pivoting towards more sustainable technologies and practices.
Just the farmers who are waiting for their income tax return are getting $200 or $300. That is far below what they're actually spending on a carbon tax. So it's not carbon tax or revenue neutral anyway. But I'll pass it over to my colleague. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the Pest Management Regulatory Agency, so PMRA. I was very, very encouraged to hear you say that this new oversight layer will be based on science. So did I hear correctly? It will be only scientists that are going to be populating on this expert panel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm pleased to hear that. The August 4th announcement also put a pause on minimum residue limits, on MRLs. MRLs aren't established until all the health and safety concerns are addressed. And then, basically MRLs, they're a trade facilitation process. We have Codex internationally, which tries to harmonize all of the world standards around this. Can you tell me what representations is Ag Canada or are you making to, again, the Minister of Health to get this moving, to get this pause lifted?
Well, we are moving actively. The consultation is done. The panel is, I've been told that they have identified almost all the experts, so it will be announced shortly. So we are moving forward on this issue.
Okay, I think we were maybe not communicating that. I appreciate that answer if that is on the expert panel, but now I'm talking about minimum residue limits. The setting of those minimum residue limits, that's something apart from the registration process, or it's a part of it, but it's done afterward. So that's paused. That's done after health and safety concerns. So why are they being paused?
Well, we said that we wanted to look at the framework under which PMRA is working, keeping it, as science-based, obviously, but the law date back 2002, if I remember well, and we really felt that it had to be looked at, possibly modernized. So the consultation has been done. I haven't seen the result of the consultation yet. It's just completed. So this is the process that is ongoing, and we said that until we have completed this process, we had put the pesticide limit residue on pause.
Thank you. I'm going to switch to just the topic of the Grocery Code of Conduct. The fresh produce sector, the fresh food sector, the manufacturing food sector, just to bring some context around it. That's larger than our auto sector in Canada. It is a huge sector. And I keep hearing from my food manufacturers, as recently as this morning, from my fresh food a sector from there, really emphasizing the need for a grocery code of conduct with integrity, and to quote the words, that has teeth in it when it comes to a dispute resolution mechanism. I understand there's aspects of this that are provincial in nature. How are you going to, however, ensure that we do have some unanimity across this country, because no food manufacturer wants 10 or 13, depending how you count, frameworks dealing with a code of conduct?
Yeah, so this is why we have put in place a committee with the industry, all the representatives from the different stakeholders of the industry. They are working on it right now. This has been requested by the FPT agricultural ministers. Minister Lamontagne and myself are following this. We have received the first report, first high-level recommendation for the Code of Conduct, and now we have asked for more concrete action plan to be presented to us during our meeting in July. We have also provided this committee the resources, the secretariat support, and to make sure that they are moving forward, and they are. I know that they have added new members on this committee, people who are really in the day-to-day business, not only the top management, but those who really know how this business is being done on a day-to-day. So I'm confident, hopeful, confident that they will come with a very concrete action plan by July.
Thank you. I'll be raising it again. I know my time's out.
Well, that's your privilege. Thank you, Mr. Epp. Thank you, Minister Bibeau. Maintenant,
And now, Mr. Turnbull, for the last round of questions, 5 minutes.
So I know that Canada is definitely a world leader when it comes to agriculture and agri-food, but I get really excited when we talk about innovation, and I think the work of this committee has we've undertaken several studies that have highlighted some, I think, really impactful innovations, whether it be research in soil science that can help preserve the health of our soils, vertical growing, aquaponics, artificial intelligence, compostable packaging. There's so many opportunities for innovation. And I noticed in the main estimates, there's a fairly large budget allocation for $711 million. I wondered, just as a starting question, how does that break down, just in terms of programming? I wonder if you or your departmental officials could help break that down for us.
Talk about the high-level programming, but if you want to have the details of the breakdown, maybe Marc-Claude, ready?
Yeah,
just le 700 millions pour les programmes
For technology programs and innovation, the 750 million, I think.
Here's if it's what you're asking for. We are investing in science and innovation through different channels. So, for example, we talked about the Clean Technology Program. There's one stream that is for research and innovation. We have the Agri-Science mechanism that is under the federal financing of the Canadian Partnership Agreement. So there are different streams where we do invest in research and innovation, and as you know, under the Department of Innovation as well, we are supporting more of these innovative solutions. The supercluster is another way. it's out of the $700 million. But maybe during the second round with the officials, you can ask this question again and get the details of the $700 million. So thank you.
Sure. Maybe I could also just follow up and ask which new innovations and leading practices in the industry do you think have the most potential for achieving, and building a more sustainable food system in Canada?
There are a lot. I would say that I was very excited when I learned, and I just mentioned it quickly earlier, but out of the protein supercluster, there's one initiative around fertilizer made out of canola residue that looks very promising. I think that everything related to having seeds that are more resilient to drought or to some pest is also something very important. Research around animal feed that could also, I have in my own writing a research farm, and they are working on pork and dairy cows feed. And it's interesting to see the potential that is around that as well. So whether it is to reduce the methane or they also have the something around the biodigesters. So there's a lot of very exciting, I would say, innovation in the sector.
Sounds great, thanks. And for me, I'm very excited about those innovations, especially when they intersect with our climate action as a government. I think we can see benefits across the industry, but also achieving benefits to build a more sustainable food system. I wonder, is there any initiatives of building more regional food systems across Canada and working on the resiliency of our supply chains? Could you speak to those?
Yes, you will remember the Local Food Infrastructure Fund that we've launched. So it was the idea behind this fund was actually it came out of the food policy for Canada, and we have supported a lot of community organizations across the country for them to be able to invest or to buy, some specific equipment to strengthen their local organization, food organization. We recently launched the last call, and actually we have decided to focus this, I believe, $30 million to remote communities and indigenous communities. So less directed towards one small organization in a region, but more trying to encourage these communities to work as a group within the community, build a group and give them the means to strengthen their local food infrastructures.
Merci, Madame Ministre.
Thank you, Madam Minister. And thank you, Mr. Turnbull. The time is up. So on behalf of the committee, thank you very much, Madam Minister, for your work and for your leadership in the agriculture and agri-food portfolio for our families and our producers. And I hope, once again, on behalf of this committee, that you'll have a good evening. Thank you.
So we're going to just take a 2 or 3 minute break to let the minister exit the room, some staff and folks of that nature. So grab your coffee, grab a quick drink, and then we're going to come right back, so don't go too far. Going to be back, and of course we have officials from CFIA and the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food. I know you're still getting settled in, but please just be mindful of the noise, including Mr. Drouin, my good colleague. So we're going to get right into questions. 6 minutes. We're going to start with the Conservatives, and I believe Mr. Falk, you are up for 6 minutes. Let's please keep the noise down in the room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the officials for joining us here this afternoon. And looking forward to our discussion. Having the minister was very interesting here as well. So just to start off, I'm just wondering if there's any sectors of agriculture that the department views a higher priority than others, like is cropping more important than the livestock industry, or are there certain aspects of farming that deserve more attention than others?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll get right into the member's question. As the member perhaps knows, there are programs that support virtually every sector of the agriculture production system in Canada. And so I think the answer to that question is no, we don't have priority sectors per se because we're supporting everything. But a number of the programs are designed to respond to those sectors that need the most assistance at a given time. So they're responsive programs in that sense.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sampson. So just as a follow-up to that question, Bill C-234 passed second reading and will find its way to committee later on, and we'll be discussing that further. But can I safely assume that that the department will be advising the minister to treat all sectors of agriculture fairly and expanding the carbon tax exemption to the heating of livestock facilities as well as to grain drying?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question from the honourable minister, from the honourable member. You know, if you're referring to Bill C-234 specifically, the government is putting a price on carbon pollution as a critical part of the action plan, and that bill will continue to be debated. I won't refer to the advice that we're proposing to the minister at this point.
Okay, various sectors of their supply management system have received compensation for the different trade agreements that we've had, and when it comes to CP, TPP, and to CUSMA and others, the dairy sector of supply management has received direct compensation, whereas the poultry sector has received compensation with strings attached, whereby they must spend money on upgrades or improvements in order to access any compensation. Is there any particular reason that this was done?
Mr. Chair, thanks to the member for his question. The government has been clear in the overall approach to compensation. The way that the individual compensation agreements were reached were through consultation with the different groups of producers and processors, and there was a decision made jointly about the best approach. In some cases, there was more interest to receive an investment-style program. In other cases, there was more interest to receive a direct payment program. Based on all the different considerations that were taken into account, the programs were designed in different ways. But there were certainly extensive consultations on those designs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sampson. The minister, when asked about the whole concept of increasing crop production but decreasing the use of nitrogen fertilizer, she did provide a clarification. It was a reduction in carbon emission fertilizer that the reduction she was after. But can you expand a little bit further on how exactly the department would see increasing yields while decreasing the use of nitrogen?
Certainly, thank you. So to underline, I think the point the minister was making was that the targeted reductions are in the emissions associated with fertilizer use rather than the use itself. So I think that, as you noted, there are a number of ways of getting at that. The minister also mentioned some new fertilizer types that are being prototyped for use. I think there are ways to use it a little more efficiently. We see a number of options there that can be worked out, and so the consultations are underway as to how that plan will be implemented. We don't have something that we're pushing through. This is very much will be a joint approach with producers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sampson. And I guess my final question, just on the whole aspect of honey and bees. We know that bees are important not only for the production of honey and for our honey industry, but also for the pollination of many crops. We've seen some severe winter kill this year, and the minister did allude that there's some safe regions being considered for the export or importation of bees from those regions. Can you update this committee on how that's going?
Chair, thank you to the member for the question. From the information that I've seen, we do understand that the mortality is an issue this year. The minister mentioned also that it has been a challenge logistically during COVID-19 because of fewer flights and some restrictions. But the numbers of bees coming into Canada looks to be steady. So we're not seeing a significant reduction in our ability to bring bees in, and that's two kinds: queen bees that are brought in specifically, as well as these packets of worker bees. And both of those channels still exist, and those bees are coming into the country. We'll certainly be monitoring that carefully, and if we feel that there is a shortfall, we'll look at ways to resolve that. And in fact, we are looking at additional opportunities there. And I know that the CFIA agency is working intensively on this issue to see what other options there would be if we need them.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Thank you, Mr. Falk. We're at time. Mr. Lewis, we're going to turn to you now.
Mr. Chair, appreciate that. You know what? Reciprocity, I'm going to share my time, Mr. Chair, with the member from Aurora, Oak Ridge, Richmond Hill. So, and I want to thank the Deputy Minister, Associate Deputy Minister, for your time and your expertise. And I would like to talk, you know what, the agriculture sector is the biggest use of fresh water. And I know how important it is to protect water for our farmers. I've had town hall meetings with farmers and other environmentalists, and we've all agreed everyone wants to do their part. Protecting our water is very topical in my region and very important in Kitchener-Conestoga throughout Canada. On farms, we talk about surface runoff from pesticides, fertilizers, manure, or leaching nitrogen into groundwater, which eventually finds its way into our lakes and rivers and oceans. But again, I know our farmers want to do their part for water quality. They're looking for support to make that step. So how can you address how the government's supporting our agriculture sector to protect and manage our water resources in a sustainable manner?
Thanks. Chair, thank you to the member for the question. I think there's a couple of things to note here. Certainly water is a priority for the Government of Canada and in the agriculture space for sure. You know that there's a commitment to create a new Canada Water Agency and to sustain the Freshwater Action Plan. Up to $438 million has been allocated to this in the context of the federal provincial cost-sharing programs, where water is a prioritized area of expertise, area of action. And one final point would be that the department is working on a green agriculture plan, which would integrate the importance of water into climate change and some of these other priority programs that are taking place now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Besides protecting water, also our small communities, our rural areas and farmers have to protect from water sometimes. So climate-related risks like floods, droughts, other supports that's in the budget that we can work with our agriculture sector as well.
Chair, thanks to the member for the question. I think a good example of the response, of course, is the Agri-Recovery program, which is the negative side of water in flooding and kind of getting on top of managing water issues in that sense. And that has been a program that has been used significantly in British Columbia, of course, last year.
Thank you. Chair, I'd like to cede my time to the member from Aurora, Oak Ridge, Richmond Hill. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member from Kitchener-Conestoga for sharing your time. I just had a question regarding the departmental plans for 22-23. I noted that it's considering changing policies and programs ahead of the next agricultural policy framework. And it says to stimulate the adoption of sustainable practices to help reduce emissions, increase resiliency, particularly for agricultural soils, reduce risks, and open up new opportunities for producers. And I know we all know how important the agricultural sector is in helping us fight climate change, especially with carbon sequestration. But I'm just wondering what specific changes the department is considering that would encourage farmers to even do more to adopt climate-friendly practices and some of the new ones that have been obviously introduced.
Thank you. I'm just looking here to give you the full details to respond to your question. So I think that the minister mentioned one specific program, which is $150 million for Resilient Agriculture Landscape Program, which is one of the programs right now that's being negotiated with the provinces and territories in the context of the next policy framework. And there are a whole series of programs in the climate change space, and if you add them up, it's over $1 billion invested in on-farm agriculture solutions, clean technology programs, both R&D and adoption programs immediately, as well as R&D spending.
Great, thank you so much. And just one follow-up on that. I know the United States, the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture requires producers who participate in their federal crop insurance program to comply with certain conservation requirements. For example, not planting crops on highly erodible land or converted wetlands. Would the department consider pursuing similar requirements for the business risk management in Canada?
Chair, thanks for the member for the question. There is already an existing mechanism in the federal, provincial, territorial framework for environmental plans that are fairly widespread in use, but not mandatory and not the majority of producers. That is one of the discussions as part of the federal provincial negotiations about how can those plans be used. Are they valuable to link to certain programs? What kind of incentives can be created? So what the member is noting is very much one of the active conversations with the FedProv.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Thank you, Ms. Taylor-Roy. Maintenant, Monsieur Perron.
And now, Mr. Perron for 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll try to dig into the questions that we raised earlier. In terms of temporary foreign workers, I don't know to what degree you'll be able to answer this, but in terms of the coordination with Quebec, I know it's complex. There seems to be a process that has already been done in Quebec that is being redone at the federal level. So are you in discussions with them to simplify this process? Because we're being promised some kind of reform. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. There are a lot of discussions underway between the federal government and the provinces, including Quebec, between Quebec's agriculture department. There are fewer discussions underway, as the minister said, on this subject. So it's really it's in a broader context, and I can't quote you anything else. Well, you spoke with one of the members who asked earlier about bees and solutions that might be found. Do you think there might be some emergency assistance for producers so that we can renew the population of bees? Well, what I said earlier for bees was that according to our analyses, the system is quite stable still. We have partners for imports that are still in effect, and we're looking closely at any gaps or potential problems, and we're prepared to beef up the system to respond to that. But for the moment, we're confident that it's unfolding properly and well. Are you in the position to talk to us about negotiations that are underway with the UK so that it can join the CPTPP and also to renew the bilateral agreement between Great Britain and Canada? Because we know that in the last Parliament, the previous agreement was renewed quickly. And in terms of supply management, people are worried because there's a lot of cheese from Great Britain that's been imported. So could you reassure us on that point? Mr. Chairman, I would say that for that question, of course, the minister responsible for international trade is the lead on this file. But I think that the government was clear that they're going to keep the supply management system and keep it strong. And they're not going to push for a solution that's not in the interest of Canada. But I don't have any further updates to offer. Thank you. I'll benefit from the people from the CFIA who are online with us to continue what Mr. Barlow was asking about earlier with genomics and the rules. And we know that the process is under revision, but it's a bit obscure. And I'm not necessarily against it, but a lot of people are contacting us as to how it's going to be done and how it will be monitored afterwards. Can you talk to us a bit about that process? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Perron, for the question. So, yes, we are reviewing the guidelines for our regulations on, you say, about the genetic modifications and genomes. And so we've had broad consultations last year, and now we're doing follow-up with the stakeholders who gave us comments. As you are perhaps aware, the perspectives are quite diverse and they're not divided. So before we publish these new guidelines, we want to make sure that they're based on the best scientific evidence possible, and that they are transparent for Canadians, and so that things are foreseeable for people in the industry, and also that they would encourage innovation. Do you have a deadline? Is there a date by which the process will be finished? Anything announced? No, we don't have a date yet, but the discussions are very active with stakeholders currently. Okay, thank you. Now I'm coming back perhaps to the people from the department. Have you had internal discussions concerning excise taxes for marginal production like hydromiel from Australia? Is there work being done on that? For mead, is there anything about that production? Well, the work on surtaxes, it comes under the Department of Finance, so there's nothing underway in our department on that front. Mr. Perron, I'm sorry, you have 30 seconds left. Okay. Look, that's tough. 30 seconds. You're very strict, but you tell me in advance. So, I'll take 2 minutes and 45 seconds next time. Okay. All right. Maybe now, Mr. McGregor for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sampson, my question is just sort of following on the subject matter that Ms. Taylor-Roy was talking to you about. You know, she was talking to you about the next agricultural policy framework, and you know, it's trying to stimulate the adoption of sustainable practices. I guess what I'd like to know from you, like, you know, with the term sustainable practices, how do you define that term? Like, is it Is it by the metrics? Are you trying to achieve a certain level of carbon sequestration, a reduction in fertilizer use, pesticide use? Could you maybe elaborate a bit more? Because that's a term that can be very open to interpretation. And I think, if we're to understand the term from the department's point of view, I think it gives us a better sense of how those goals can actually be put into place.
Chair, thank you to the member for the question. So yes, there is a focus on sustainability in the next policy framework. The Guelph statement, which came out in November last year, shows the ambition there. In terms of how to define sustainability, it is a little bit broader than just pure environment, but there are discussions underway about how to define and quantify the emission reductions, for example, to be clear on the objectives and the results that would be achieved. So those numbers have not been finalized, but they're under discussion.
Is it going to focus, do you think, exclusively on emissions, or will there be other factors at play, like, maybe a farm is able to have reduced its pesticide use through alternative management practices, et cetera?
Yes, there certainly will be other factors in play, because the approach is one of flexibility as well for provinces to design their approaches, and in some cases other environmental priorities will absolutely be part of it.
Perfect. Carrying on, I know, business risk management programs, I'm sure, our committee has done a study into them, and I know that's a big part of the next policy framework. I guess, what has the department learned, particularly in the context of climate disasters? What's the main feedback you've been getting from farmers on, how BRM programs have or have not worked, and knowing that extreme weather events are going to be more common in the future? I guess, where's the discussion headed on how BRMs might have to be tweaked in order to properly respond to the challenges that are inherent in 21st century agriculture, particularly in the context of climate change?
Chair, thanks to the member for the question. So the business risk management suite is designed to have a holistic approach to the kinds of risks that were noted. So there's an agri-insurance component, which provides a form of crop insurance. There's agri-stability, which responds for income loss, other shocks to the system. There's agri-recovery, which was the tool used to respond for drought and flood. And there's Agri-Invest, which is essentially a matching fund for producers to use to draw quick liquidity. So we're looking at all of those to identify the best response, and there is certainly recognition the system is evolving in terms of the types of risks and the frequency. So that is very much a factor in terms of assessing all of those programs and making adjustments.
Thank you. Back, I think it was in 2019, I had the opportunity to go to the Okanagan and visit AAFC's research station, I believe in Summerland. And the scientists there were so very kind to give us a tour and explain a little bit about the important work they're doing. One of the shocking things I found out, though, was just how many novel pests and diseases we import every year. And I was wondering if you could inform the committee just, what kind of trends are we seeing? Is the danger from novel pests coming into Canada, is that increasing? And how are you coordinating with other departments, both in detection and isolation, so that vast sectors of our agricultural economy are not affected in a negative way?
Chair, thanks for the question. I'll offer a first comment and then turn to colleagues from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency may wish to add, because it's a critical issue for them. I mean, clearly we are operating in a more globalized setting in terms of trade and the movement of people and things. So there have been some increased risks of transmission. So I would just note that by way of the broad context. CFIA colleagues, Sylvie or Philippe, would you like to comment on the CFIA's assessment on this?
Thank you. Yes, we can certainly add it's very important activities for us at port of entry to look for new species or new disease that can come with some imports products. I can give you an example of import of wood with coming with certain species that are not welcome. The Asian mud in the West is one of them that we have to destroy, and it takes many years to track and destroy and contain them to an area where we can get rid of those invasive species. That can be very costly for our economy. So the prevention, the identification, the prevention, and destruction of those species is certainly key for support the economy and make sure that they don't get into areas where we don't want them to be.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Thank you, Mr. Morrell. So, colleagues, here's how we're going to play this. We're going to go for a 15-minute round, so 5 minutes for the Conservatives, 5 minutes for the Liberals, 2.5 each for the Bloc and NDP. I'm going to exercise one question because I enjoy asking them, and then we're going to go to estimates, and we'll be done for the day. So, Mr. Barlow, 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I may split my time with my colleagues here just to see how fast I can get through. To CFIA, certainly the avian influenza is a huge issue for chicken producers across the country. In Alberta, we've had some producers who have been waiting up to 2 weeks for CFIA to come on farm to depopulate. And my understanding is that this should be done up to within 36 hours to contain the spread of the flu. And obviously, this is a big concern if we're waiting up to 2 weeks. What steps has CFIA been taking to try to address this situation to ensure that we can contain this outbreak?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question of the member. I think this is the first thing we have to do when there's an outbreak of avian influenza is to make sure that the birds are contained and don't move. So that is usually done after we receive indication that the disease could be present on the farm. Usually it's done when either a local veterinarian or when a farmer notice a large number of animals that are sick or dying. So
yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Morrell. Sorry, I only have a limited amount of time, but is CFIA taking some steps now, seeing that some producers are waiting up to 2 weeks for CFIA to come on farm to do the depopulation? Are there some steps being taken, concrete steps, to address that situation?
Well, we mobilize, actually at the moment right now, we have close to 700 of our employees, so it's more than 10% of the agency that is deployed to specific sites. We have 89 sites that are active at the moment. So we go by priority but we make sure first that the biosecurity is there, that birds are not moving, and as fast as we can go. So we just have more people deploying to every site to make sure that they don't wait too long.
Thanks. Maybe Mr. Sampson for you in the next question. In speaking with potato producers and PEI, they've now been told that the disaster funding that they received as a result of the export ban is now going to be considered income and could have a pretty profound impact on their agri-stability. Is that true? I just want to make sure that that is truly the case, and if it is, what impact would that have on their agri-stability, not only for this season but potentially years to come?
Thanks, Chair, for the question. Typically, most Government of Canada programs, I think the vast majority, are counted as income when received. And so therefore, if there's another program that comes later, as in the case of agri-stability, it will count that previous program payment as income. This happens quite regularly with the agri-stability program. It's not a big disruption. If a producer has had a very, very significant loss that year, that kind of program support should not crowd out in a significant way the other support that would be received. So it's done in a balanced manner.
Thanks. I'll turn it over to Mr. Rapp.
Thank you. The Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act exempted on-farm gas, gasoline and diesel. Greenhouse received an 80% exemption, mushrooms nothing. C8 obviously is proposing a rebate, and the C234 is proposing an exemption. In broad strokes, can you comment on the impact between the two different approaches for mushrooms and for the greenhouse industry?
Chair, thanks, member, for the question. I wouldn't really be able to comment on the on the dynamics of the difference between those three, but we can certainly give you something in writing if you'd like an answer to that question, member.
I would very much appreciate that. Thank you. I've been hearing a lot of concerns from the industry that there's potential for pulling agriculture out of the temporary foreign worker program, putting it into some form of its own standalone. They're concerned that perhaps EDST does not fully understand the importance of the seasonal ag worker program. What kind of representations are you making over to EDSC on the seasonal ag program and its component as a standalone entity?
Chair, thanks to the member for the question. There is a very close relationship between the Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food and ESDC, certainly on this program. I think they understand the importance of the agriculture sector, particularly coming out of COVID-19 and the food security issues that have arisen. So we're arguing strongly for this strong recognition of that group of workers coming in, and not sensing that there's a disconnect, if I could put it that way. So I think we're well positioned.
Thank you, Mr. Epp. That's time, unfortunately. Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Now we have Ms. Valdez for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you to the witnesses. I'll be sharing my time with my colleague from Whitby. So, Mr. Sampson, we touched on it earlier, but I want to see if you can comment on the situation in Ukraine as it pertains to the way that it's impacting Canadian fertilizer. Is there anything that we can do to mitigate the risk and produce fertilizer locally?
Chair, thank you to the member for the question. So the way fertilizer is organized, let's say in Canada, is really quite different depending on the region. In the West, the western part of Canada is very self-sufficient, completely self-sufficient on fertilizer, both the nitrogen fertilizer as well as the potash, which is a huge export for Canada. So there's a regional difference, and the outbreak of the war in the Ukraine highlighted that Eastern Canada brings some imports of nitrogen fertilizer into the country, and that represents about a little bit over 30% of their fertilizer coming from those. I'm pleased to announce that the last of the Russian laden fertilizer vessels that were coming to the eastern part of Canada were approved to come in. So those did come in as planned this year, and that companies are now positioning to not use Russian fertilizer going forward because there are a lot of other options. As the member noted, there are also plans being looked at as to how we could increase production in the eastern part of Canada or transport additional fertilizer from the western part of the country.
Thank you. I'll just hand it over to my colleague.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Mr. Sampson again for all your answers here. I'm interested in just asking a few questions about the new agricultural policy framework. I've looked at the Guelph statement, and I'm very happy with it. I just wanted to ask you and confirm from your perspective, did that work really sort of outline the fact that the new agricultural policy framework will be really centered on a sustainable development lens in terms of how it approaches agricultural policy for the next 5 years?
Chair, thanks to the member for the question. So it is the framework is to remind members that it's a $3 billion framework that is coming to its renewal next year. So what's being negotiated right now is the next 5 years, starting in 2023. The lens is to drive sustainability, innovation, economic growth, and competitiveness. So all of those are important. But we've elevated in the conversation, as the member noted through the Guelph statement, a focus for additional work on sustainability. And so that's where the budget announced $150 million of new money for the Resilience Agriculture and Landscapes Program, as an example of that direction.
Thank you. And so I'm wondering where we are in terms of the process. Like how close are we to, and where are we in terms of consultations and conversations with provinces and territories, which I'm assuming are part of that process, a pretty essential part?
Chair, thanks to the member for the question. So it's ministers have met a number of times already on this framework. The next meeting of ministers will take place in early June. A conversation, but the big ministerial event is the third week of July in Saskatchewan, who's the host province this year. And at that time, ministers are expecting to finalize a number of elements, if not all elements, of the framework and have a launch at that moment of the next framework that would start in 2023, as I mentioned.
Thank you. I wondered if we've had some conversation about ecosystem services and some of the, I think, calls from some of the industry players, I think, and organizations that would say we need to reward agricultural practices that are preserving our environment, protecting biodiversity, being more efficient with the natural resources that they rely upon. Is that being considered within the new agricultural policy framework, a way to reward farmers that are adopting the best possible practices?
Chair, thanks to the member for the question. As I mentioned before, a lot of the programs do have an integrated lens on both climate change and environment that do take an ecosystems approach or value the ecosystem services. An example of that would be the on-farm climate program, which is very much about the sustainable management of the land, which will bring benefits for biodiversity, soil conservation.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. I apologize. I even gave a few extra seconds, but I want to make sure we get Monsieur Perron for 2 minutes 30 seconds.
Mr. Perron for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We talked a lot at the committee in our regional processing study that we needed to improve transport in the areas, especially in terms of slaughter. And at the beginning of the meeting, we were talking a lot about all of this. I'd like to know where you are at in terms of a program that might help new facilities in this area.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. And I think that it is indeed a key strategic issue, particularly for the inspection agency, so I will give them the floor to answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. You're perhaps aware that one of the minister's priorities with her provincial and territorial counterparts is having the possibility of facilitating internal trade, particularly activities that involve slaughter of meat. So coming out of Guelph, one of our priorities that we'll be working on and bringing to the minister in July is a progress report on this. And we are having very active discussions with several provinces to set up pilot projects to explore the possibilities, particularly as concerns the capacity of slaughterhouses that are on the borders of various provinces. So I think that by the month of July, we will have made more progress that we can report on this important issue. You don't have anything on new facilities, I understand that, and we talked about interprovincial issues, so that's good. In terms of reciprocity of standards, I'd like to know where you are at with the DNA test that was perfected by Poultry Canada to prevent illegal imports. 30 seconds, please, Madame Lapointe. You mean for hens? I don't have any updates for the DNA testing, but I can say that there's a great deal of more collaboration with CBSA, and we have detected several issues, and we're also working with the U.S. very closely to ensure that there will be no problems in this area. Thank you, Ms. Lapointe and Mr. Perron, and now Mr. McGregor, finally, for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been looking abroad to what other countries are doing with respect to their agriculture programs and trying to combat climate change. There's two notable examples, Australia and France. Australia has a national soil strategy. France, through its rural economic development, a rural development plan, is really trying to invest heavily in agroforestry. I'm just wondering because, we've heard witnesses during our environment study talk, of course, about the importance of soil, but one of our witnesses, Mr. Eric Tonesmeyer, was talking about how agroforestry in particular is one of the most efficient ways of taking carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it below ground. I'm wondering, Mr. Sampson, is the department looking abroad to best practices as examples of how we can tailor Canadian policy? Can you provide any examples? Because I wouldn't want us to ignore what's working around the world, which may be successfully brought to Canada. Can you provide any answers in that regard, please?
Chair, thank you to the member for the question. Yes, we do certainly look at best practices abroad. As part of the Natural Climate Solutions program across the government, which includes Natural Resources Canada and the tree planting program, as well as Environment Canada and Climate Change and Agriculture, Agri-Food, trees are part of the various programs. And an example would be, as you say, of a best practice would be a shelter belt, which would be established on a field through the planting of trees.
And so the 2 billion tree initiative, AAFC is trying. Are you trying to involve a little bit of that into agricultural crop trees as well?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Well, I'll end there, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm just going to exercise a couple questions. I love being your chair. Sometimes I miss the opportunity to engage as you guys have the chance to, so I'm just going to go quickly. Mr. Barlow, you asked about gene editing documents, and my understanding is Health Canada actually released those yesterday. I have a tweet out, so I would encourage my colleagues to retweet that and get the message out. But Mr. Sampson, can you, Mr. Sampson, do you have that information? I know it wouldn't be directly in your department, but I think it was released yesterday, correct?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, there was a gene editing guidance document released earlier this week, I understand it. There would be, when the minister spoke earlier and said that we haven't acted yet, I think she was referring to the CFIA, who would be also later, I don't know the exact date, but coming out with some gene flow related to the environment guidance as well. So I think that it's not all out, I guess, is the way I would describe it. But yes,
Mr. Sampson, I would like to ask on Ukraine. There was a lot of conversation today about global food security. I happened to read yesterday that the Russian Federation was targeting the plant breeding program in Ukraine. Specifically, I think there was 200,000 different types of seeds. Of course, we know how important that work is here in Canada, indeed around the world. Moving forward, is there something that Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada can do to support the, because my understanding is the seeds have been destroyed, is there something we can do in partnership with Ukraine through our research facilities to share seeds and to reestablish that program that they're going to have to get back up and running?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Yes, absolutely. There are things that Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada can do as a leader in that space. There was a specific request from Ukraine for a certain type of seed which Canada was able to provide. I'm not sure if it has actually arrived yet, and there was some sensitivity about announcing it before it had actually arrived. So I don't want to name exactly what it is at this point, but we can certainly provide that information shortly. But yes, we are responding to those requests.
That's great. Glad to hear that. And I know I don't want to predetermine where this committee might go, but we are looking at Canada's role potentially in the future as a future study. So I think that information would be valuable for all committee members. Just the last question I'll ask. Mr. Barlow talked about biosecurity. There was conversations from members about avian influenza. In my riding, this had a breakout in Kings Hants. One of the particular farmers in question actually transported a sample to UPI lab to provide some preliminary analysis, at which time there was some recognition that there was issues. The sample then had to go to Winnipeg to a CFIA certified lab. So perhaps this question could be between Madame Lapointe or Mr. Sampson. If we're looking at actually trying to build regional facilities that are up to national standards such that CFIA can act quicker, is my understanding, is there a facility in Fredericton, a lab that has just come online that is of that national standard? If not, what suggestions would you have with proponents on how we can get them to a higher level so that we have quicker response times in the regions?
Thanks. I will let Sylvie or Philippe give you an answer on that.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I think it would probably make more sense for me to go back and speak with my colleagues in science and get you an answer in writing.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. And again, it was just more, we had you here. I know in the Atlantic region, UPI, for example, is looking at ways that they can expand their capacity so that we can work with CFIA to respond. So thank you, and I'm happy to work with you offline or provide that information to the committee. So that's all the time I'll take, colleagues. Thank you for letting me indulge. We do have estimates that I hope you'll want to pass. I've talked to you offline in the piece. Can I get unanimous consent that we actually just vote on all 5 of the motions at one time? I think that's not going to be a problem. On division, of course. Okay, so we'll just move to that. Scenario 1, yes, here it is. If there's unanimous consent, so shall all votes referred to this committee in the main estimates carry? On division, okay. And shall I report the votes back to this House? Thank you. All right. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you to our guests, to the officials. Thank you for the work that you do, to our translators, our whole team, Madam Clerk. Thank you so much, colleagues, and we'll see you back on May 30th. Oh, my apologies. Mr. Turnbull, you might have just a quick point to make.
Yeah, just a very quick point. I just didn't want the members to be surprised that I'm putting on notice 2 motions. One is to study the National School Food Policy and its implementation, and another on Canada's new agricultural policy framework. So putting those on notice today, I'm not moving them, of course, but just wanted to make you aware so you weren't surprised when they hit your inbox. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Turnbull, and yes, I know you'll be sharing those with the clerk, who will disseminate to the entire group. So, colleagues, enjoy your break week. We do have subcommittee on the 26th, I believe, is the date, on Thursday from 2:30 to 4:30 Eastern, and that will help determine some of the questions on future studies. Thanks to everyone. Enjoy your break week.